environmental initiatives at the San Diego Foundation. Also, here is Mayor Serge Dedina of Imperial Beach to talk about what that city is doing to join this effort. Nice to see you, Serge, again. Well, let's talk about how you decided to come on board and be part of this initiative to look out to the future and try to make sure that everyone's quality of life remains as great as it is right now.
Well, you know, Imperial Beach is a beautiful beach city surrounded on three sides by water. So we've always been concerned and impacted by what happens with coastal flooding in the winter when we get big winter storms, especially in the 1980s and 1990s when we had El Nino years. And so we were grateful for the support of the San Diego Foundation, the California Coast Conservancy, to really start planning for what will be sea level rise, but will really be coastal flooding on all three sides of our city. We have the bayfront on our north side, the Tijuana estuary on our south side, and the Pacific Ocean obviously on our western end. And so when we get these big winter storms, get storm surge, and that can put coastal flooding into our streets and into residences. And that's something we just started planning on Tuesday, in fact, with the California Coastal Commission as well.
And Nicola, how much of a grant did Imperial Beach receive from the foundation, and what are the marching orders for them to do to get ready?
Well, I was really excited to see the partnership that the city of Imperial Beach had put forward. So working with some renowned scientists and other technical experts, working with others at the Tijuana River National Estuarine Research Reserve, which is one of their neighboring entities, to really take this science and the best available data that we have today and compare it to how they're preparing communities, residents, other environmental assets or economic assets that line those areas that Serge was talking about along the coast.
And Serge knows a lot about this because you spent many years as a lifeguard. I don't know, I know you're the mayor now, but you've seen the changes that have happened over the years. And what is your personal experience been when it comes to all this?
You know what? The last 2 years we've had, we have king tides, these extreme high tides in the winter, and without even any large surf, we've had the worst coastal flooding that I've seen without a big storm. And so, you know, over the last couple decades, you've had about 8 millimeters of sea level rise per decade. And so when we have these high tides and even it's a little bit of storm, a little bit of surf, that pushes water over into the street, and for us it flows back into the Tijuana estuary. So that's something that we're really concerned about, because we had that happen with big tides and not too big a surf. We really know that when we're going to have these big winter storms, we have a lot of water coming at us. So we've got to really start planning now. Planning to do things, what do we do with our pump stations? How do we have emergency preparedness plans? And really, how do we start managing our beach better to prepare for this?
And you've been working with the Coastal Commission on this as well. What is their involvement?
Well, you know, it's funny. We just had this meeting on Tuesday, and what we said was, hey, we might have to re-engineer our beach a little bit to prepare for coastal flooding that comes this winter. And just how do you go about getting a permit for that? How do you do that? What are the best management practices? They're all very practical stuff. It's just not science. But we have the best coastal scientists in the country, Dr. David Ravel, working with us. So that's really great. And we have scientists at Scripps who are also consult with us as well. So we're really lucky to have that.
And what about this El Nino prediction that everyone seems to be on board on for the coming winter? What impacts could that have on Imperial Beach and all of our coastlines, really?
Well, you know, in 1980, I was a sophomore at Mar Vista High School in Imperial Beach, and I remember walking to the beach the day after we had 15 to 20-foot surf that knocked out the Imperial Beach pier. And, you know, we had people kayaking or canoeing on Seacoast Drive in Imperial Beach. So I talked to someone today that remembers the Chart House flooding in Cardiff. So that's what we're going to see with big El Nino storms. It's really the storm surge that you see combined with that sea level rise and very large surf and wind that's going to be pushing the water up into the streets and up into places where you normally don't see it, including into our bayfront as well.
And Nicola, this is something that will impact the entire state, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, are other cities preparing like we are?
Absolutely. I think this is, as you mentioned, this is a common challenge and something that at the San Diego Foundation we're really looking at how can we help catalyze and support action amongst, you know, the 10 coastal cities that we have here in San Diego. And so one of the other grants that we were able to give also supports a nonprofit, ICLEI Local Governments for Sustainability, that's working with a number of cities to help also build their capacity and help collaborate and coordinate some of their efforts too, because it's a coastline, and climate change really doesn't know boundaries between our cities. It's something we all have to work on together.
It's great that the foundation is really looking into this, and some of the organizations are coming together as a conglomerate. But what can people, individuals do, homeowners do, residents do to make a difference?
Well, Imperial Beach, in fact, our lifeguard captain said, back in the 80s when we had these storms frequently, a lot of folks just had, the plywood to put on their windows. So that's something we're going to be talking to homeowners. What are do the steps you can take for identifying our evacuation shelters in case there is coastal flooding. But everyone can make a difference. We can start conserving energy. We can start getting involved. And in our case, we're definitely going to have some public outreach meetings to talk about the practical steps we can take as a city to deal with this. So that's something I'm really excited about. And again, we have some really great scientists involved in that who really understand the importance of communicating and working with the public.
And what about from an economic standpoint? We were talking, Nicola and I, earlier about that there is kind of a symbiotic relationship between business and between the economy and kind of jumping on this clean energy bandwagon.
Well, and I think when it comes to sea level rise and just coastal management in general, it's really important to start planning for this so we're not surprised in the future. It's a lot more cost effective just to plan for coastal flooding and sea level rise now to do and get our business community involved in that so we can we can plan new development appropriately. In fact, we just had a new project that was approved and it was placed above the 100-year sea level rise mark. So that's something I'm really proud of. We did a good job. There was no fight over that development. The developers were glad to do it. They provided some additional access to our coast. So I don't think there has to be a trade-off. I think we can both grow our economy and prepare for coastal flooding and sea level rise.
And you mentioned the vulnerability of Imperial Beach just because of your location to Mexico and that whole, the sewage problems that happen in that whole area. So is that one of the reasons that it's so important that your community, your city is taking part in this?
Yeah, look, in Imperial Beach, we want to be a national model for how to deal with this. We've accepted our responsibility. We understand the risks, but more importantly, we understand the need to plan for this today and start working on it now responsibly, to communicate and work with our public and our business community and the world's best scientists who happen to be at Scripps and our consultant, Dr. Dave Ravel, and with the San Diego Foundation to be proactive, to be positive, and really do a good job to deal with this.
And Nicola, for people who are watching right now who might be interested in joining this cause or being part of it or doing something, how do they get involved?
Well, I absolutely invite listener or viewers to download our report. It's available at sandiego.edu/climate. That's a link to the Climate Education Partners, the group that put forth this report, and find out what you can do. Also, as Mayor Dedina mentioned, there's a lot that we can all do today to reduce emissions and to do our part to save energy, to bike and walk and reduce emissions and our contribution to this issue of climate change.
Never too early to start on all of this, it sounds like. Well, great. Well, I know, Nicola, you're coming back. Mayor Dedina, thank you so much for being here and sharing what Imperial Beach is doing on all of this. We'll see you again soon.
Thanks.
Still ahead on San Diego People, we're going to be sitting down with the Chula Vista City Councilman talking about what his city is doing to protect itself from changing climate. After this.